now we still waiting for other participants to join in this Zoom meeting.
That's okay. It's always good to start early and make sure everyone can get in and everything's working, right? So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Assalamualaikum Prof. Zainuri, Pak WR1. Assalamualaikum Pak WR1, sudah bisa gabung? Assalamualaikum Pak WR1.
Waalaikumsalam Pak BT1.
Nggih, matur nuwun.
Assalamualaikum Pak WR1.
Ya, Pak Dika.
William.
Universitas Negeri Semarang, also known as UNNES, is one of the conservation universities in Indonesia. As a world-class university, UNNES has 15 international graduate and undergraduate programs spread in 8 faculties. They are Early Childhood Education, English Education, Japanese Literature, Geography, Mathematics Education, Chemistry Engineering, Health, Sports and Recreation Education, Public Health, Law, Economics Development, Economics Education, Social Science Education, and Sports Education. With its green environment, it is the perfect place to learn about conservation and enhance our awareness of nature. UNNES provides us the chance to learn a lot of things, mostly Indonesian culture, and more specifically Japanese culture, such as playing the traditional Japanese music instrument known as gamelan, learning the traditional Japanese dance, about traditional Indonesian games and sports.
Yes, it has been so much fun. We have played balap karung, takiak, and played a lot of tennis, and just hanging out with the local students. It has been really nice. So nice.
I really like being a student here at UNNES. The classes are very interesting and our fellow students are really kind and friendly to us.
We play together and share happiness and joy with the kids.
UNNES is surrounded by a lot of places you can visit every day. So hang out with friends, finish your homework, or even just to enjoy the night. I am, 1,000 miles away from home at Universitas Negeri Semarang. So, what are you waiting for? Come to UNNES and experience it all.
Assalamualaikum Pak Dekan, Pak WL, teman-teman semua, Sugeng Injang.
Assalamualaikum Pak Dekan FMIPA, selamat dan sukses ya.
Terima kasih Pak Dekan FI, rawuhipun.
Waalaikumsalam Pak Dekan.
Alhamdulillah, sukses selalu pokoknya.
Sehat-sehat ini.
Ya, alhamdulillah ini Pak Wede ya.
Assalamualaikum, sukses MIPA.
Waalaikumsalam Bu Dekan. Bu Dekan FBS, monggo.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Pak Dekan, Bapak Ibu panitia semua. Prof. Dan Pak WR1, Sugeng Injang. Selamat, semoga sukses, semoga banyak.
Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi Bu Siti. Good morning Bu Siti.
Good morning Bu Siti.
Good morning, thank you. I'm trying to set up my computer at the moment, so I haven't turned on my video. Selamat pagi teman-teman semua. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Dari Rangkas Bitung, itu Setirupaya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Abdi Mulia, Ayah Fabian Mulia SD. Silaturahim, selamat bergabung, Mas Abdi.
Ya, terima kasih.
Terima kasih banyak.
Webinar ramah sosial media. Insya Allah nanti akan ambil.
Universitas Negeri Semarang, also known as UNNES, is one of the conservation universities in Indonesia.
Misi kami adalah menjadi Fakultas Matematika dan Ilmu Pengetahuan Alam berwawasan konservasi dan bereputasi internasional.
Memiliki 6 jurusan dengan 14 program studi, FMIPA Universitas Negeri Semarang menjadi bagian rumah ilmu pengembang peradaban unggul bagi lebih dari 5.500 mahasiswa. Untuk menghasilkan lulusan unggul, FMIPA didukung tenaga pengajar yang kompeten dan berintegritas. Sejumlah kerjasama dengan perguruan tinggi di luar negeri dijalin untuk penguatan kelembagaan yang bereputasi internasional. Jurusan Matematika. Jurusan ini memiliki 3 program studi terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan matematika, program studi matematika, dan program studi statistika terapan. Jurusan Fisika. Jurusan Fisika saat ini memiliki 2 program studi yang telah terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan fisika dan program studi fisika. Jurusan Kimia. Jurusan ini memiliki 2 program studi terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan kimia dan program studi kimia. Pada tahun 2019, jurusan kimia membuka program studi baru, yaitu program studi farmasi. Jurusan Biologi. Jurusan ini memiliki 2 program studi terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan biologi dan program studi biologi. Pada tahun 2019, program studi biologi telah berhasil mendapatkan sertifikasi internasional dari ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance. Jurusan IPA Terpadu. Jurusan ini memiliki 1 program studi terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan IPA. Dan pada tahun 2019, jurusan IPA Terpadu telah membuka 1 program studi baru, yaitu program studi ilmu lingkungan. Jurusan Ilmu Komputer. Jurusan ini merupakan jurusan termuda di FMIPA yang saat ini menaungi 2 program studi, yaitu program studi informatika dan program studi sistem informasi. Sebagai bagian dari pengembang peradaban dan ilmu pengetahuan, FMIPA telah menghasilkan mahasiswa dan lulusan yang memiliki kompetensi unggul.
FMIPA adalah kampus yang inovatif, di mana di FMIPA sendiri terdapat fasilitas yang memadai dan juga mahasiswanya di sana bisa berkolaborasi dan bekerjasama untuk saling berkarya dan berprestasi. Banyak sekali kesempatan yang saya dapat selama kuliah di FMIPA, yaitu ada prestasi seperti prestasi di bidang akademik, non-akademik, kemudian delegasi, kemudian ada prestasi organisasi, baik itu tingkat nasional maupun internasional. Harapan saya, FMIPA semakin inovatif dan berprestasi sehingga mampu mendukung UNNES mendunia untuk Indonesia.
Nama saya Muhammad Hamrawi, saya alumni FMIPA Universitas Negeri Semarang. Saat ini saya sebagai Board of Director dari Krokodik. Segala pencapaian yang kami dapatkan hari ini tidak terlepas dari peran serta bimbingan dari dosen-dosen kami di FMIPA Universitas Negeri Semarang. Kami bisa terus survive, adaptif, menghadapi permasalahan-permasalahan dalam kehidupan kami, dan alhamdulillah bisa mengantarkan kami sampai di titik ini.
Untuk menghadapi tantangan global, FMIPA melaksanakan sejumlah program internasional bagi sivitas akademika, di antaranya konferensi internasional, student exchange, PPL antarbangsa, KKN antarbangsa, PKL internasional, dan berbagai program pengembangan kompetensi mahasiswa di luar negeri. FMIPA mengantarkan generasi terbaik bangsa menjadi agen perubahan demi kepentingan bangsa, negara, dan masyarakat dunia.
FMIPA inovatif mendunia untuk Indonesia.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we are about to begin, please make your comfortable be seated. I have a few housekeeping notes to make before we begin today's program. I would like to seek your cooperation in completing this webinar. During this program, please turn on your camera and mute your speaker to avoid interruption. Then, for the question, participants can write in the chat room during the presentation or by pressing the raise hand button during the QA session. For the attendance, a link will be given during the second QA session. To get certificate, all participants are required to fill out an evaluation form will be sent via chat room. And the last, for material and certificate will be sent via email. Thank you for your kind cooperation and attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Rector of Universitas Negeri Semarang, Profesor Dr. Fatur Rahman M. Hum, the Honorable Vice Rector, Head of Institute, Director of Postgraduate Program, Dean and Head of Department in Universitas Negeri Semarang, the Honorable Dean of Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Universitas Negeri Semarang, Dr. Sugianto, Committee Chairperson Arif Widiatmoko PhD, the Honorable Invited Speakers, Professor Gillian Rohrik, Dr. Siti Maisuri Patahudin, Zainal Abidin PhD, and the distinguished guests and all participants. On behalf of the organizer, I would like to extend my warm welcome to distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, for giving your honor present to an international webinar with the theme Research and Innovation in STEM Education, which organized by Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Universitas Negeri Semarang. We hope you will learn a lot of today. We have lined up for you to be fruitful and engaging. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all stand up and sing the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya, and followed by Mars UNNES. Ladies and gentlemen, all rise. Thank you. You may return to your seats. Next is praying. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all have a silent moment to pray for the success of the webinar. Pray begins. Thank you. Before starting the presentation session, we would like to hear the welcome speech from the committee chairperson. To begin with, I would like to invite the chairperson committee, Arif Widiatmoko, PhD. Sir, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Rector of UNNES, Professor Dr. Fatur Rahman M.Hum, the Honorable Vice Rectors of Academic Affairs, Professor Dr. Zainuri S.A. MSc AKT, the Honorable Dean of Faculty Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Dr. Sugianto MSc, the Honorable Invited Guests, Director of Postgraduate Programs, Head of Institution, the Dean, Head of Department, and Head of Study Program in Universitas Negeri Semarang. The Honorable Speakers, Professor Kirian Lohrik from University of Minnesota, USA, Zainal Abidin, PhD from Universitas Negeri Semarang, Indonesia, Dr. Siti Padahudin from University of Canberra, Australia. The Honorable Organizing Committee of this international webinar, and distinguished participants from overseas countries and provinces in Indonesia. On behalf of committee, I would like to welcome you all to the international webinar. This year, UNNES is celebrating its 56th anniversary in March 2021. With respect to university anniversary, Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Universitas Negeri Semarang, hold international webinar with theme Research and Innovation in STEM Education. We are very glad to inform you all that this webinar has attracted many participants. More than 1,000 participants were registered to this webinar and joining in this Zoom meeting and via YouTube live streaming. And the participants of this webinar are coming from 34 provinces in Indonesia, from Aceh to Papua. And the participants from overseas countries welcome from Malaysia, US, Turkey, Thailand, Japan, Australia, Cambodia, Laos, Zambia, and Malawi. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the keynote speakers, and all participants, members of organizing committee that have been working very hard. I would like to thank them for their dedication, time, and efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the committee, I apologize if there are any mistakes in organizing this international webinar event. Thank you all for your presence and participation, and you are the very important part of this webinar success. Thank you and enjoy the webinar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir, for the speech. Next, we are honored to invite our keynote speaker today, Professor Dr. Fatur Rahman M.Hum, who will also officially open this webinar and deliver the keynote speech, which in this case will be represented by the Vice Rector of Academic Affairs, Professor Dr. Zainuri S.A. MSc AKT. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Zainuri S.A. MSc AKT, Vice Rector of Academic Affairs, Universitas Negeri Semarang.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Dean Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, all of Dean Faculty, Director of Postgraduates, the Head of Institute, Head of Department, and the Head of Study Program at Universitas Negeri Semarang. Distinguished speakers, the first Professor Kirian Lohrik from University of Minnesota, USA. The second, Dr. Siti Maisuri Atahuddin from University of Canberra, Australia. The third, Zainal Abidin Kristi from Universitas Negeri Semarang, Indonesia. On participant, more than 500 participants from all in the world. Distinguished participants, on behalf of Rector of Universitas Negeri Semarang, I wish to welcome you all to international webinar, Research and Innovation in STEAM Education. First of all, let's thank Allah SWT for giving blessing and the opportunity for us to meet in this international webinar conducted by Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Universitas Negeri Semarang. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this conference is in accordance with UNNES vision, UNNES to become conservation university with international reputation. UNNES have traditional achievement, among them the first Green Campus 2020, 66th rank international and 6th rank at national UI Green Metric. The second, International Certification Assessment Report, AUNQA, for biology, Indonesian language and literature education, physical education, and development economy. I'm sorry. Okay. The third, Scopus publication. The fourth, for ICU rank for 2020 and STARS rating. The fifth, the best value of budget work for 2020. The sixth, WTP, 10 years continuously UNNES as corruption-free area campus and clean and serving bureaucratic area integrated zone. The seventh, SNPTN 2021, the second rank in Indonesia, the most number of SNPTN 2021 students. September reached 2,765 students. Fourth rank in Indonesia, the most number of SNPTN enthusiasts reached more than 40,000 applicants. The eighth, student achievement 2020, the seventh rank at PIMNAS and the second rank at Peximinas. The ninth, milestone UNNES 2020 until 2024 to be reached university and teaching university. Ladies and gentlemen, STEM is a new trend that emphasizes teaching science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in an integrated manner. STEM is a combination of two or more of the following within a learning experience: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. STEM also teach soft skills needed in all careers such as creativity, solving touch problems, critical thinking, gathering and evaluating evidence, making sense of information, data analysis, and communication. Next. 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 The research center always adaptive to the development and demand of the current state of disruption disruption, so that the integration of ethno-STEM-based learning combined with the demand of learning in the first century era. Activity RoboSTEM project, a robotic for learning mathematics with a STEM education approach. Joint research and publication of STEAM with dynamic geometry software conducted by Department of Mathematics UNNES in collaboration with STEAM Laboratory Linz School of Education, Johannes Kepler University, Linz, Austria. Student exchange. 20 students of Mathematics Education Study Program UNNES take mathematical modeling in micro and macro teaching setting course in summer semester 2021 at Julius Maximilian University, GMU, Würzburg, German. Math City Map, Indonesia, and other STEAM education with mobile technology in Indonesia, conducted by Indonesia Mobile Material Research Center, UNNES, as part of the Math City Map run by Goethe University of Frankfurt, German. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Finally, of the rector of Universitas Negeri Semarang give a motto. Next. Next. The healthy academic atmosphere is built through academic person who has commitment in three things which are linked each other and mutually reinforcing, namely togetherness, integrity, and the real world. Thank you for your attention, and we hope you get pleasant experience during international webinar. By saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, international webinar is officially open. Thank you. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your presentation and the sharing of the keynote speech. Let's give reaction of applause for Professor Dr. Zainuri. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have a photo session. Now please activate your camera. I will count 2 to 10. Please be ready. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Thank you very much. Kepada Bapak Wakil Rektor Bidang Akademik dan semua tamu undangan, jika ada kegiatan, dipersilahkan meninggalkan acara. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak WR1, Bapak Ibu Deka.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the very moment that we have been waiting for plenary session. The first plenary session will be formed from the Honorable Speaker, Professor Gillian Ruhrig from Universitas of Minnesota, USA, and then Zainal Abidin, PhD from Universitas Negeri Semarang, Indonesia, and the last speaker is Dr. Siti Maisuri Patahudin from University of Canberra, Australia. And the presentation will be guided by Samuel Budi Wardana Kusuma, PhD. Before we start the first session, I would like to present the curriculum of moderator Samuel Budi Wardana Kusuma, PhD. is the lecturer of Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Universitas Negeri Semarang. And he is now an assistant professor in chemistry sciences. For moderator, the time is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this international webinar about research and innovation in STEM education. My name is Samuel Budiwardana Kusuma, and it is an honor for me to be a moderator for this keynote speaker session. We all understand the importance of science and technology and innovation in day-to-day life and how they are transforming the world. Today, our speakers will be sharing with us their expert opinion on the STEM education. Hope you will find the next 2 hours useful. In this session, first, we will have presentation from the first keynote speakers, Professor Gillian Roeri from the University of Minnesota, USA, followed by the Q&A session. After that, we continue to our second keynote speaker, Dr. Siti Maisuri Patahudin from University of Canberra, Australia. And then by the third keynote speaker, Zainal Abidin, PhD from Universitas Negeri Semarang, Indonesia. And finally, Q&A session for the second and third speaker. The time allocated for each presentation will be around 20 to 30 minutes. So ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to have Professor Gillian Roeri together with us this morning as a first keynote speaker. Professor Gillian Roeri, good evening in US time. How are you? Thank you for joining us in this webinar, and we are very pleased to have you here. So Professor Gillian Roeri will be delivering speech entitled Defining and Researching Key 12 Integrated STEM for about 20 minutes, followed by a 10-minute Q&A. So before we begin, allow me to briefly introduce our first keynote speaker. Professor Gillian Roeri received her bachelor degree in chemistry and mathematics in University of Southampton, UK on 1990, and continued her master degree of physical chemistry in University of Arizona on 1993, and she completed her PhD in the field of teaching and teacher education, science education, also from University of Arizona on 2002. Currently, she is a professor in STEM education, Department of Curriculum and Instruction, University of Minnesota, and has published more than 100 papers in reputable refereed journal articles. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our first keynote speaker, Professor Gillian Roeri. The time is yours.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. It's an honor to be here with all of you. I'm going to share my screen here so you can see my slides. Just give me a moment to work on the technology. There we go. Hopefully you can you see those okay? Looks like it's a little, Okay, I'm hoping you can see those okay. I can see people moving in there. I'll let you stop me if you want to share the screen differently. So what I'll talk to you about today is some research that we've been doing over the last few years, where we've been working on really defining and operationalizing what we mean by STEM and how that we can then better do research in K-12 classrooms. And so I'll take a little bit of time to share some of that work with you today. And so just briefly talk about a little bit of background on STEM, start on really from a United States context, so but also I think very relevant globally to the different countries represented here. And so when we think about why we're thinking about STEM now in our K-12 classrooms, and we're really trying to primarily address STEM workforce needs. So in the United States, they're projecting that we'll be, in the next decade, we will need to hire another something like 7-8 million scientists, engineers, technical workers, and that we are not preparing enough students to meet those needs. And so there's a really, really big need to increase the quality of what we do in our STEM education and to make sure that we find more and engage more students in those possible careers. But more broadly, we want a STEM literate population. Not everyone is going to go into STEM. We don't expect all of our students to become engineers, but we do need a population who understands STEM and are able to apply those critical thinking skills in their everyday life. And that's really important when we think about the grand challenges that face us in the 21st century. I just put a few of them down there at the bottom. So things like energy, the environment, how are we going to feed 8 billion people while sustaining the environmental health of our planet, things like that. So it's really critical that we engage our students in the critical thinking and problem solving that STEM affords. So that's some of the broad goals. But then as we start to think about, okay, well, so if this is our goals, what does it look like in classrooms? And what we see is a lot of different enactments of STEM. And I'm just going to share a few common ones that we see in the United States. And the graphics that you'll see here are actually from some work by Dr. Roger Bybee. So I've taken these out of one of his presentations. So these are common ways that we see STEM enacted in our classrooms. And the first is just basically as a siloed approach. So in our schools, you might see a science class, a technology class, an engineering class, a mathematics class, as separate subjects where there's no integration across them. And in reality, for most of us, that really means science and mathematics. It's pretty rare, even in the United States, with our current policies, to see technology and engineering classes. What we see some schools doing, which is a fairly common approach here in the United States, is what I've shown in the second graphic. And that's to combine some combination of the disciplines into an elective class. So this particular example shows science and technology. I would say the most common one that we see here in the United States is probably technology and engineering. So we see a lot of coding classes, things like that. So this is a class that's an elective class. It's not required of all students. It requires special planning on the part of the school, hiring a new teacher. So we do see that, but it's not the most common approach. The most common approach we see is the one shown here in the third graphic. So in the United States, with the next generation science standards, it's science teachers who are primarily charged with integrated STEM and added engineering practices into their classrooms. So we see science teachers bringing in technology, engineering, and mathematics in an integrated way into their classrooms. And that's the primary context for the work that I'll share in the next few slides. So I'll start with just some of the things that the literature agrees on with STEM. So these are common things that it's not just my team that are saying this. This is common across the literature. So that STEM is contextualized by an authentic real-world context. That we need to have explicit connections between the disciplines. So students need to understand how science, mathematics, engineering, and technology are working together in that problem-solving space. It's important that students have the opportunity to apply and develop 21st century skills. So creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication skills. And then we really need an emphasis on student-centered pedagogies. So we're talking about students engaging in STEM practices. We're not talking about lecture and textbook and things like that. Authentic real-world context with engineering design challenges. So that's something that we really emphasize in our particular research. There are many others who see STEM a little bit more broadly. So that's definitely a unique feature of our work, and you'll see that with the way that we've operationalized STEM. So the problem we're trying to solve with this particular project that I'll present today is, as researchers, when we go into a classroom, how are we going to know the quality of what we observe? Right? So if I walk into any one of your classrooms and you tell me that you're integrated in STEM, how am I going to record that as a researcher? And there really are no instruments out there for classroom observations that really integrated STEM. And so the project that we set out with was to develop that. And we did draw on some of the existing instruments in terms of style and ideas. And I just shared a few here. The most common one that we see in the literature is the Reform Teaching Observation Protocol. I've used it many times in my own research, but it was designed for science and mathematics classrooms, not integrated STEM classrooms. And the same with the others that I have listed. And so given that one doesn't exist, we set out to develop one. And so this is with funding from our National Science Foundation. This is a collaborative grant that I'm leading at the University of Minnesota with my colleagues, Dr. Bethring Whalen, who's at St. Catherine University, Dr. Emily Dare and Joshua Ellis, who are at Florida International University, and Dr. Mark Ruler, who is our statistician on the project, who's at Michigan Tech. And so again, our goal was to develop a valid and reliable observation protocol to be used in K-12 STEM classrooms. It's a 4-year project, and we are halfway through year 3. So we're almost 3/4 of the way into the project. We got slowed down a little bit by COVID, but we're pretty excited to share with you the results that we have so far. And so I'll just briefly describe the process that we went through to develop this protocol. So we have, from a former project, we have about 2,000 classroom videos of integrated STEM that we've done some systematic review of the literature to help us craft a whole series of possible items. We started off with about 70 items. We've gone through a consolidation process by looking at the literature review, looking at the video suite that we have. We then developed item levels for this. So just like you would in a rubric in your classroom, how would we score each of those items? And then we've also developed item descriptions and scoring protocols that I can share with anyone who's interested. And so our final protocol has 10 items. And each item is leveled 0 through 3. And so what I'll do here is I'll just share one sample item with you so you get a sense of what they look like. And then I'm going to talk more about the broad design of the whole instrument. So this is one sample item. It happens to be item 3. And this one is about developing multiple solutions. So this is a critical component of integrated STEM. And if I was to come into your classroom and see you do integrated STEM, I would expect that somewhere along the line, that students would have the opportunity to develop multiple solutions to whatever authentic real-world problem or engineering design challenge that they were working on. So a level 0 is quite simple. I don't observe that in the classroom. At a level 1, I would see the teacher encouraging the students to develop multiple solutions, but really not pushing the students to evaluate how good each of those different solutions might be. At level 2, I would see the teacher encouraging the development of those multiple solutions and then pushing the students and promoting those opportunities to evaluate how is solution A possibly better than solution B, and all those kinds of ideas. And then in level 3, not only would the students be developing multiple solutions and evaluating them, but they would have a chance to iteratively develop and improve those possible multiple solutions as they went through the STEM lesson. So just to give you an idea as to what each of the items looks like, and on a future slide I'll explain to you what all 10 are, but that's just one example so you understand how the items look. And so we went through, as a team, we've scored over 100 videos initially for the purpose of determining integrated reliability. Did some statistics on that. We used Krippendorf Alpha, and we were able to get to an acceptable 0.6 level on our integrated reliability, except for one of the items we were close to 0.58. And following that, once we had integrated reliability amongst our team, we score several more videos, over 300 videos, which we then did exploratory factor analysis on all 10 items, because we wanted to understand how these items group and how do they cluster to give us themes and better understanding of the critical components of integrated STEM classrooms. So that's what I'll share with you on the next slide, is some of the results from the EFA. I'm not going to get into all the statistical details. If any of you who are interested in the statistics, there's some details there on the left. I'm going to focus on more of the conceptual piece there on the right. And so you'll see there the list of the 10 items that we have briefly there. So looking at students' lived experiences, having agency in the classroom, collaboration, STEM career awareness, things like that. And we came up with 2 possible models out of the statistics. And what I'm going to share with you is the model that best fits the statistics and best fits our conceptualization of STEM to help understand what's going on in the STEM classroom. So you can see there that we've got those 4 factors, and I'll talk about them in detail on the future slides because there's a lot of information packed on here for us to look at. But I'll just point out a few things on here to show how complex this is and some of the future work that we need to do. So you'll see that item 3, for example, which was the one I shared with you, developing multiple solutions, loads onto 2 factors. That's not ideal in a factor analysis. You can see item 1 negatively loading, which is an interesting thing to think about what that means. And you can see that item 10 actually doesn't load on a factor. So even with as many videos as we've scored, there's still some interesting spaces in here in terms of how the EFA is coming out. So what I'll do in the time we have left is I'll talk through a little bit what these factors are and what they look like. And so factor 1 actually plays out in either the 4 or the 5 factor model. So this one is a very stable factor. And what factor 1 is really about is higher order thinking and design decisions. So you can think about that as the 21st century skills of critical thinking that we want students to engage in. And this is a combination of 4 items. Item 4 is, you can think of a little bit as Bloom's taxonomy. It's going up in terms of the cognitive level of thinking that students are engaged in. Evidence-based reasoning, so providing arguments for the design decisions that I make. Also the item 3, which I talked about, which is the multiple solutions, and item 7, which is working in groups to co-construct knowledge. And so this item is very consistent. Those items group really highly there. So really important factor is allowing students to engage in higher order thinking. The second factor is context for learning. And this is really heavily loaded with item 2, which is about contextualizing student learning in a real world problem. But also loading onto that is item 3, which is the multiple solution item that I shared with you. And really, we think this is because of how we conceptualize STEM in our work, where we use engineering design challenges for the real world factor context. So which is why we see those 2 items loading. We suspect that in classrooms where engineering is maybe less heavily emphasized, you may see some separation of these 2 items. So it'll be something interesting to explore in other contexts, including Indonesia, potentially. Item 3 is about data practices. So we really want students to be engaged in collecting data and analyzing data as they engage in STEM. It's a really critical practice of science and engineering, mathematics and technology as well. And so this is really heavily influenced by 2 of our items. So item 6 is about epistemic agency, and that really focuses on the student-centered nature of the work. And to say, I don't say first do this, second do that, third do that, but that the students themselves are designing these protocols and deciding what data to collect and how to collect it. So there's an element of student-centeredness in how data practices play out in this factor. And then the second piece is technology practices. In terms to make it STEM and bring in technology, we're really trying to engage students in computational thinking, using probeware to collect data, maybe using CAD software, those kinds of things as they're working with data. One of the things that concerns us a little bit about this item is the negative loading of item 1. And item 1 is making sure that we have a connection to students' lives. And what we've started to notice as we look at STEM lessons, and these lessons often go over the course of a week or 2 weeks, is we often see the connections to student lives happen early in the lesson in terms of contextualizing the problem. And maybe it's a place-based problem in the student's community. But as the lesson goes on and the students get more into collecting data, it becomes more about the science and data collection and the technical skills, and it becomes more removed from the students' lived experiences, which is why we think we see the separation of this item. And so that suggests that we have some thinking to do about how the instrument might behave differently at different points in the engineering design practice, and that maybe there's a difference with how things look at the beginning of a STEM unit and at the middle, and then further on at the end of the STEM unit. It also tells us that we need to work more with our teachers on making sure that throughout a unit, these things are connected to students' lives and not just as a touch point at the beginning. So it also points to us some places where we need to do some more professional development with our teachers. The fourth factor is a single item factor. It's item 5. And item 5 is the one that talks about the interconnections between the disciplines. And so this is where we expect teachers to make explicit connections across the disciplines with their students. So not just that we see science, technology, and engineering, mathematics in a lesson, but that the teacher is helping the students to really understand how are these things connected. So students understand that they're expected to apply their learning of, let's say, Newton's laws to the design of some kind of engineering product. The students understand why and how the disciplines are connected. And this one's actually very, very difficult for teachers to do in the classroom. So this one's been an interesting one to work with. And then it's a 4-factor model, but we have this, what we're loosely calling a 5th factor. It does load as a 5th factor in the 5-factor model, which is STEM careers. And if we want STEM to be about improving STEM workforce readiness and having students think about STEM careers in the future, we need to help students understand what the possible STEM careers are. What does it mean to be an engineer? What are the different kinds of engineers and of all the different kinds of sciences that students could engage in? We don't see this very much in our classrooms right now. And definitely when we do see it, it happens independently of students engaging in an engineering design or STEM challenge. And so this one seems to not load, and it's something that you can definitely teach an integrated STEM challenge without talking about careers, and you can definitely teach about careers without engaging students in an engineering design challenge. So they seem to occur in isolation, which is interesting when we think that one of the goals of integrated STEM really is about careers. Of course, it's important to say that all of this is very influenced by the video set that we were looking at and where the teachers actually were able to implement some of these things. So very quickly, because I'm very cognizant of time here, I've got my stopwatch going here, so I don't go over my allotted time for you. So we're excited about the results of the exploratory factor analysis. It's pointing to having a valid and reliable instrument with some interesting spaces there that we want to investigate further with the factors. It definitely links back to what we understand from the STEM literature and seeing that factor on 21st century schools and knowing what we believe integrated STEM to look like in the literature. So there's very strong connections there in terms of the validity of the instrument. But we do have more work to do. And so I'll just take a few moments to talk about that. So some of our next steps, as we've been working on the exploratory factor analysis, we're proceeding towards the next statistical step, which is to do confirmatory factor analysis. And we are almost uncoding another 300 videos. So we'll have close to 900 videos at this point that we'll have scored, which means we've got a broader set to expand our analysis and to see how stable this 4-factor model that we're proposing is. Some problems with that we're trying to attend to, and this is where COVID has been a problem for us. The videos that we've been using to do our factor analysis come from an existing STEM project that we did before this one, and it has a very engineering-centric framework, and there are certain ways in which teachers engage. It was also primarily for upper elementary and middle school classrooms, and so we don't have a lot of videos for younger children, so the primary grades, and also high school grades. We have some, but not very many. Our goal with, if it hadn't been for COVID, would have been to be in classrooms this past year and broaden out our set of videos so we could do confirmatory factor analysis on a broader set of videos, which unfortunately we have not been able to do. So we're hoping next year to be able to expand that. And also we know that some of the items don't show up very often in the data set, which means that we have some statistical issues with some of the items. So again, we're hoping as we get into more classrooms to expand that and have that broader set. In terms of some future research, now we've got the item going, we're able to do some research and look at how might STEM be different in an elementary classroom versus a middle school versus a high school classroom. Do we think that STEM might look different in a physical science classroom versus a life science classroom? So we now have an instrument that we're able to actually look and see, is STEM different in these different disciplinary and grade level spaces? We're also really interested in the trajectory day by day throughout a STEM unit. I sort of hinted at that earlier with some of the issues that we're seeing in our instrument, which is we expect some of these items to score more heavily on different days than another. You don't expect to get into data practices until you've established what the problem is. So we don't usually see data practices coming up until day 3 or 4 of a unit, which makes sense when we think about the trajectory of a lesson. So we're going to be doing some statistics, looking at how these scores track over the different days of a unit. So now we have this instrument, we've got some really exciting research questions that we'll be able to answer. And I'd love to come back and tell you more about that maybe in another year once we've had a chance to do that analysis. So, and then I'm going to just leave you here with my contact information. And so just thank the National Science Foundation again, who provided the funding for this work. We're always not only obligated, but thankful to them and want to share that acknowledgement. And then I've got my email here on the slide. So if we don't get a chance to address everyone's questions or you think of questions later, feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions, share any papers and things like that with you. So I've said a lot in the last 22 minutes. I hope I didn't talk too fast. I will stop sharing my screen here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that people have. So, and I can see one here in the chat, so I'll jump in and take that. Thank you, Hazrul here. Has STEM integration considered the characteristics of a particular field of study, for example, with mathematics? So this is really interesting in our space. We're starting to think about looking at differences across the science disciplines, so chemistry versus physics versus biology versus the earth sciences. We definitely see some differences, I can say already, with the physical sciences versus the biological sciences. It's a lot easier to integrate engineering into the physical sciences at this level, at K-12 level. As we go up towards undergraduate and university levels, and students have to think about things like genetic engineering, and we see more space sometimes for those kinds of things. In terms of mathematics, Hazrul, which you asked about specifically there, we focus on science classrooms because of how our standards work primarily, not mathematics. I know that in Germany, they focus on mathematics, so there's some interest in spaces. We're excited to get out into some other countries and look at how to and think about how these instruments play out, so that we'll be interested. But mathematics, the way we're seeing it in STEM right now is very much mathematics as a tool. So it's just a mechanism for maybe calculating averages, the standard deviation. And so we're really starting to think about how we work with science teachers about how they represent mathematics more strongly and more conceptually. I'm working with a professor named Anita Schuchart at the University of Minnesota, who looks at how scientists use mathematical equations in their teaching. Some really exciting work there, thinking about things. So if there are other questions, I'm happy to answer those. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Samuel. Just checking, is it only me? I can't hear any sound from here. Is it only for me?
Or the
I think there is a technical issue from the
Hello. So our team is still hello. We would like to invite question from audience. Translate your question to English. So please feel free to ask any question. Okay, we have a professor. We have several questions right now. Let me read it for you. So first question is from Heri Sutarto. The question is, can you explain more about STEM literacy and how to prepare the learning using STEM approach? Professor, please give your response.
Yeah. So when we think about STEM literacy, we're thinking about the kind of critical thinking. Percent of them don't exist today. So we're preparing students for jobs we can't even imagine what they look like. So what we have to do is prepare students for critical thinking and creativity and communication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's next to the next question. Maybe I will pick up this question from Muhammad Fath Ajihad. How much will STEM affect life in the future? Is STEM a target to change the face of education to be more ideal? And how will STEM make it happen?
That's a great question.
That's all.
Yeah. Hopefully my voice is not doing the slow-mo effect from what I can read in the chat here. Really what we're thinking about with schools now is we have to modernize the way we think about education because we all have these devices. I can look things up now. It's not like when I was in school and we had to memorize things, right? I can look things up quickly. It's about what I create and what I do with this information, not just memorizing information. So it really is about changing how we think about schooling and thinking about how students are able to apply knowledge rather than memorize knowledge so they can solve whatever problems we have coming up in the future.
Okay, thank you. So maybe the last question from Astro. And the question is as follows. Has STEM integration considered the characteristic of particular field of study? For example, mathematics is very strong with deductive concept, while science field of study is very strong with inductive concept. How is this incorporated into STEM integration concept?
I would project that STEM will look a little bit different depending on the context in which it's being taught. So for us, we're very much looking in science classrooms and using engineering, which have their own specific epistemological approaches. So we really expect the kind of thinking that students engage in to look different in the different contexts, depending on what the problem that is complex. It does not have a single solution. And so in terms of traditionally with mathematics, we are moving towards a single solution, right? There is a right answer to a mathematical problem characteristic of STEM. And so it really depends how that applies in whatever context that you're working in. I watched myself go fast and slow there on my screen. I have no idea what my voice sounded like. So we believe that STEM learning is collaborative. So whether we grounded social constructivism or social cultural learning, it really is about teamwork and students working as teams. For example,
Yeah, let's move on to our keynote speaker, Dr. Siti Maisuri Patahudin. Good morning, and Dr. Siti, how are you? Can you hear me?
I am good, thank you.
So, okay, let me explain or introduce our second speaker. Dr. Siti has a PhD in the uses of the internet for teacher professional development and mathematics teaching and learning. She was previously a research fellow, with the Research Institute for Professional Practice, Learning and Education in 2003 and 2014. A postdoc fellow at the School of Education at the University of Witwatersrand, South Africa in 2011 to 2012, and lecturer at State University Surabaya. She has worked as a teacher trainer for in-service and pre-service teacher from Indonesia and Southeast Asia, and as a consultant in mathematics education. She has worked on a research project in collaboration with the World Bank, and is currently undertaking the 3-year project funded by the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade to promote mathematics education in the West Nusa Tenggara, Indonesia. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our second keynote speaker, Dr. Siti Maisuri Patahudin. Dr. Siti, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for the very kind introduction. I just want to make sure if you can hear me, because from when Professor Gillian spoke, it was a very slow motion. And at the moment, I can hear my own voice. Oh, thank you. The problem from my side, there's an echo. I can hear my own voice. Thank you very much, everyone. This is the title of my presentation, Research and Innovation in STEM Education, Perspective from STEM Practices Approach. And really, thank you very much for inviting me to talk to this very, very important event to celebrate the 56th anniversary of Universitas Negeri Semarang. Alhamdulillah. And I found out that UNNES motto, UNNES Gemilang untuk Indonesia Maju. And I am very proud of all the achievement. UNNES tiada hari tanpa prestasi. Okay, so I am I display this picture. Oh, hang on a minute. I think I haven't shared my screen. Sorry. Let me share my screen. Desktop 2. Yeah. I just display this one. I am in the capital city of Australia. Sometimes Indonesian people call this one Canberra village because it is very quiet, much quieter than many cities in Indonesia, but it is really beautiful. So another picture that I want to display here is the Parliament House. So if you come here, you are free to come to watch, to visit this Parliament House. It's like Gedung MPR and DPR. By the way, I asked Pak Dr. Zainal about what language would you like me to use, and I was asked to talk bilingual. But sometimes when the attendees, majority of the attendees are Indonesia, my brain tends to speak Bahasa because I always thought about, okay, I really want to deliver the message to my audience. So please, my apology if I manage my brain in speaking in two languages, in Bahasa and Indonesia. Sometimes that's quite challenging for the audience because myself also, I need to concentrate. So as I mentioned, thank you, Pa Samuel, for the very kind introduction. As mentioned that at the moment, I am working within the STEM Education Research Center. Okay, so CERC, STEM Education Research Center of the Faculty of Education. So CERC focuses on innovation in technology and STEM education research. So, and the mission of our center is really to influence policy and practice through applied social and cognitive research. And what do we do in CERC? In this slide, there's some project listed in that website. Maybe what I can do also, I will copy the link in the chat box. My topic today is, there are three things I listed there, okay? First, I will talk about STEM education based on the data that I quickly collected through Padlet yesterday, okay? And then second, I will talk about STEM from the perspective of our research team in CERC.
which is called STEM practices. And next I will demonstrate the link between spatial reasoning and STEM success and talk about what my team at UC have developed to implement STEM practices ideas. Okay, and by the end of presentation, I hope you can take some potential research ideas that might be useful for the development of Indonesian education. So yesterday I had an idea. I just posted a question to my Facebook community, my Facebook friend. I said, ketika Anda mendengar kata STEM, apa yang Anda pikirkan tentang STEM? Dan saya meminta menuliskan ide mereka secara bebas di Padlet ini. I informed them that I really need to know their ideas to help me to reshape or to refine my talk preparation. And let me show you. You can see from the link here. This is the Padlet. Yeah. I can also copy this link so you can easily read it, what people say about STEM education. Let me copy and paste, Control-V in the chat box. So if you look at that, this is what the community says. So this is from different provinces, and also some of them from Java, from West Nusa Tenggara, from Makassar, and what did they actually say about it? Okay, let me read a few of their comment. For example, the short one here. Saya sudah pernah membaca tentang STEM, tapi saya bingung bagaimana menerapkannya dalam pembelajaran matematika. Okay, this is from Sulawesi Utara. Thank you so much, Bu Hartini, if you are here. I really appreciate. Ada apa yang saya ketahui tentang STEM adalah proses pembelajaran yang mengintegrasikan 4 bidang ilmu yang sama. So we have to integrate teknologi, matematika, di mana penerapannya secara kontekstual dan melibatkan siswa secara langsung, siswa-siswa pada pembelajaran praktek atau proyek. Jadi kelihatannya STEM itu berbasis proyek. Ada banyak yang dikatakan di sini. Mengkolaborasikan beberapa disiplin ilmu, sains, teknologi, engineering, mathematics, sehingga menjadi kajian yang lebih lengkap, ya. But ada juga yang misalnya mengatakan pertama kali mendengar STEM yang terbayang adalah sesuatu yang rumit, gitu ya, sesuatu yang rumit dengan teknologi yang canggih dan susah didapat. Sasaran untuk dewasa minimal SMA ke atas, minimal SMA ke atas. Sedangkan bagus juga karena STEM yang kami lakukan justru dimulai dari TK, ya, dari playhouse, early learners. Demikian sejumlah pendapat, teman-teman bisa baca. And saya coba melihat kata yang paling sering muncul sebenarnya. Tapi what I would like to say that the finding from the Padlet, ada dua hal yang saya lihat. There are two things that I could see. They talk about in terms of the content, in terms of mathematics, science, engineering, and technology, but also some also talk about the process that Professor Gillian beautifully presented to us about the skill, the practices that she already captured from the instruments, okay? And the community also talk about that, Professor Gillian, yeah, that is interesting. So what you really unpack there, people also notice in practices in classroom in Indonesia. Thank you so much. And what is the typical view when we talk about STEM? We imagine this kind of image, mathematician or engineer or talking or dealing with this technology. And some people say, I am not good in STEM. And maybe therefore there are many other STEM, STEM, arts, and so on. Yeah, there are. They don't want to focus on only on 4 subjects. A critical question for all of us, STEM is so important, is really about in what I said before, that content and processes, and what is really critical for all of us, including in Indonesia, then how do we equip young people with the knowledge, skills, and values that enable them to achieve success in the broader sense in a rapidly changing world? And this led me to my second point of my presentation about STEM practices. So what happened in our research center here, we said that what we are doing it's really to foreground the practices, the process. Okay, content is very important, but we always talk about the process of thinking, the process of acting. We don't want people say, okay, STEM is not for me because I am not good in mathematics. Okay, so that's what our team at University of Canberra. And therefore, this is what the concept that we are proposing about STEM practices. So our team defines STEM practices as a broad concept with 3 key elements. Okay, ideas, methods, and values. So what makes it different here? It's really about foregrounding the process. It doesn't mean the content is not important. This is not a new concept actually in Indonesian education. Ya, ini bukan hal yang baru. Okay, di pendidikan Indonesia, based on my experiences as Indonesian teacher educator, or based on my ongoing engagement with Indonesian teachers, we often discuss about inquiry learning, problem-based learning, problem posing, creativity. Jadi yang saya katakan di sini teman-teman bahwa apa yang dilakukan oleh grup kami di sini itu adalah mengedepankan proses. Jadi bukan pada konten amat sangat penting, tapi kita mengedepankan proses. Dan saya katakan ini sebenarnya bukan hal baru bagi Indonesia, sebab kita sudah banyak berbicara tentang inquiry learning, problem based learning, problem posing. Ada sahabat saya di sana, Profesor Tatak, itu mendalami tentang problem posing dan creativity. And then the question is, why do we want to emphasize the practices here? Jadi kita mengatakan bahwa sebenarnya tentu kita tidak mengharapkan bahwa semua akan menjadi insinyur hebat, menjadi matematikawan yang hebat begitu ya, menjadi saintis, tetapi sebenarnya seluruh masyarakat kita memerlukan STEM thinking. Jadi proses berpikir STEM ini diperlukan. Jadi baik mereka yang di pasar, mereka masyarakat kecil, dan kita melihat kekuatan dari negara kita, itu STEM itu yang diperlukan. Tapi untuk masyarakat secara umum itu yang diperlukan adalah proses berpikir STEM-nya, seperti yang dikatakan oleh Prof. Gilian tadi, proses berpikir STEM-nya yang amat sangat diperlukan, karena kita mau semua orang punya kehidupan yang sukses begitu, ya. So the point that I mentioned here, that the point, education is for all. Not everyone wants to be an engineer or mathematician, scientist, technocrat such as Professor Habibie, but everyone is a nation builder, and they really need STEM thinking and STEM practices. Okay, let me elaborate further. So in ideas, yeah, for this first element, it includes problem finding and validating evidence, questioning, proposing, designing and building and exploring and challenging. It is interesting because many of the keywords in our diagram here were captured actually by Professor Gillian instrument. Yeah, we are looking forward to read more work from you, Professor Gillian. So what we said that students, we need students, for example, questioning the information that they are presented with. A student need to find and validate evidence to develop their strategies. They should be given opportunities to propose solutions and to design and to build products as they work through the challenges. So in my mathematics teaching, for example, I teach mathematics. I don't teach science. I don't teach engineer or technology in one moment. But what I need to think is about what kind of open-ended problem that I can provide to my student that can create opportunities for them to learn and to develop their effective strategies. Okay, that's how I think about. Okay. And for the methods here include generating ideas, encoding and decoding information, thinking critically that lead into STEM ideas. Okay, and this is just a picture from our project because since I think in the last 5 years, we also focus on how to develop STEM practices from early learners. In relation to STEM value, we should help students to use their imagination to come up with creative solution. We need to stimulate their curiosity, their eagerness to find a solution. So what I was saying here dalam hal value, dan ini adalah salah satu kekuatan Indonesia juga adalah kita harus mendorong atau menstimulasi imajinasi dari peserta didik kita untuk bisa menghasilkan suatu solusi-solusi kreatif. Kita perlu menstimulasi keingintahuan mereka di dalam menemukan jawaban-jawaban permasalahan. And actually, we had a case study. If you are interested, I can also send you this document. So we had a case study in West Nusa Tenggara, is to look at the STEM practices. And what is interesting, because we conducted 3 case studies in different countries, and we look at that the elements of the STEM practices were quite different in each country because they have different emphasis. For example, in Indonesia, this is one school in Indonesia. They values. Oh, I can hear my voice now. It's an echo. Is everything all right over there? Okay. Yeah, good. This is better. Yeah, so values that we capture: curiosity, persistence, teamwork, creativity, and integrity. So what they did a really good practices where in this madrasa, oh, the sound is a problem. Sorry. While they study about their own subject, but there are so many application in the real world. Jadi mereka melakukan peternakan, mereka menanam, banyak proyek-proyek yang dilakukan oleh siswa-siswa di madrasah ini. dan kemudian memasarkan karya-karya mereka, dan itu sungguh merupakan praktek-praktek dari STEM. Nah, this in relation to STEM practices, what we have been focusing in developing and applying STEM practices, it has been about developing learners' spatial reasoning. So spatial reasoning is one of a major focus of our project here, and based on the literature that we found that there is a very strong correlation between spatial reasoning and STEM. Okay, and now I just want to talk about this one aspect for the next slide. What do we mean by spatial reasoning here? So spatial reasoning dikatakan kalau di Indonesia itu adalah penalaran ruang, ya, penalaran space. Jadi suatu bentuk kognisi yang diperlukan dalam aktivitas sehari-hari, dan itu sangat bergantung pada kemampuan kita memanipulasi objek di ruang dan untuk memproses informasi dalam bentuk visual, ya, dalam bentuk gambar. Jadi contoh yang sangat sederhana misalnya ketika kami melibatkan para guru NTB yang datang ke Canberra untuk melakukan training, kami memberikan aktivitas-aktivitas spatial reasoning, kami membawa mereka ke suatu tempat perjalanan dari titik A ke titik B, kemudian mereka perlu menggambarkan jalur perjalanannya untuk kembali ke tempat semula, atau mereka perlu menghasilkan artefak-artefak, foto-foto dengan berbagai perspektif dan lain sebagainya. Ini yang dimaksud dengan spatial reasoning. Jadi spatial reasoning melibatkan kemampuan untuk merepresentasikan, menavigasi dan menginterpretasi dunia di sekitar kita. Nah, dan amat sangat penting untuk spatial reasoning ini, banyak literatur-literatur yang bisa kami siapkan, termasuk yang sudah kami kembangkan, yaitu kaitan tentang spatial reasoning dengan matematika, termasuk salah satu dari mahasiswa PhD kami yang mencoba melihat. So for example, one of our PhD student did a large-scale study in NTB in West Nusa Tenggara. It was about spatializing mathematics teaching. So in teaching mathematics, they try to make a spatial reasoning more explicit. So they induce or they provided some mathematical activities that create opportunities for students to think spatially. And by doing that, they could see, based on the experimental research design for the experimental group, their mathematics performance improved, and also spatial reasoning improved. So what did we do in terms of this spatial reasoning? So we did, I set 3 categories here. So we did a spatial reasoning project in early learners for foundation or kindergarten. Jadi kita melakukan project spatial reasoning itu dari anak TK, ya. Kemudian yang kedua untuk primary school, SD dan juga high school, dan dari saya sendiri itu saya fokus pada dari aspek pedagoginya. Ini contoh dari Elsa. Kalau misalnya saya, kalau teman-teman mungkin mencari website ini, atau saya bisa kopikan ke chat box untuk menunjukkan proyek-proyek yang kami lakukan, termasuk latar belakang yang ada di foto ini adalah ruang workshop kami untuk kegiatan-kegiatan Elsa. These are the publication that we did about the impact of spatial spatial reasoning, and I think I don't summarize this one in this slide. This is one activity for high school, for example, that's also exemplify how we develop spatial reasoning for students in high school. So this is a quite simple for us, of course, as adults who already know how to find, for example, volume of the cuboid or rectangular prism, but we design some activities to make them really think spatially. Okay, and another things that we did also in developing this concept from pedagogical perspective, because what particularly I think if we want to develop, for example, inquiry learning skills or problem posing skills, so we need a specific pedagogy for that. And this is what we presented in this paper. It's really about pedagogy. If you want to develop lessons that creating opportunities for students to think spatially as one key element to develop STEM thinking, then this is the framework that we are offering about we need to create moments for students to really visualize and predict their work and checking their work. Yeah. I think that's all, and I'm really happy if you wanna ask a question. And thank you so much for posting the link for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the very interesting and inspiring talk. Let's give a big applause to Dr. Siti Maisuri Patahudin. So next, I would like to introduce our third keynote speaker, Zainal Abidin, PhD. He is an associate professor in Computer Science Department, Faculty of Science and Mathematics, Universitas Negeri Semarang. He received his bachelor degree in mathematics in Universitas Negeri Semarang on 2004 and continue his master degree of computational science in UGM, Universitas Gadjah Mada on 2010. And he completed his PhD in the field of informatic technology from Massey University, Australia on 2018. So now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our third keynote speaker, Zainal Abidin, PhD. Yeah, Mr. Zainal Abidin, the time is yours.
Thank you. Okay, I hope that you all can hear my voice clearly.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pak Samuel, for very kind introductions. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. It is an honor for me to be in the same stage with Professor Gillian and also Dr. Siti, who have a lot of experience in STEM educations. Actually, I still learned about these things. So particularly with Dr. Siti, even today is my first meeting with her. I'm very honored because I learned a lot from her research when I was doing my PhD. My topic dissertation is kind of similar with her, which is the use of technology in teacher professional developments using zone theory. So yeah. For Dr. Siti case, she's using internet, me, myself, using social media, more specifics. And now we are working in the STEM area. I wish that we can make a collaborations in the future, Dr. Siti, and maybe Professor Gillian, if you are still here.
Oh, thank you, Pak Zainal. That's very kind of you.
Okay. For today's webinar, I'm going to discuss about STEM education through robotics, a lesson from robotic teacher trainings. My presentation would be more technical in robotics. Okay. Okay, this is the outline of my presentation today. So I'm going to tell about the digital transformation and its impact, and then I'm going to talk about what is the 21st century skills, what is STEM and why does it matter. And I think this part is already explained by Professor Gillians. And then next topic is what is robotics, and then low-cost educational robotics. And the last one's robotic teacher training for promoting STEM education, which is part of my last research. Well, if you see the digital transformation that has led to the Industrial Revolution 4.0, I think you already knew about this, and currently we are in the 21st century where the Industrial Revolution 4.0 is going now. In the fourth Industrial Revolution 4.0 takes the emphasis on digital technology from recent decades to whole new levels with the help of interconnectivity through we call it IoT, Internet of Things, and then access to real-time data, robotics, and then artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. All about the emerging technology is already in the Industrial Revolution 4.0. The digital transformations give impact to some aspects. There are three aspects that I can share with you. The first one is the changes in work and employments. So currently, there are so many jobs are being replaced by robot and intelligence machines because industry may be understand that using robot and artificial intelligence or intelligent machine will be get more production rather than using humans. So this is something that we need to prepare for our students. And the second is the student must prepare themselves. So they need to learn new knowledge. They need to have new skill throughout life. So they need to learn for all his life, their life, okay. And then economic innovations. There are some aspects in economic innovation that as a result of the digital transformations, currently we have new currency, informations and data is our currency today. Information is very important. So if the industry can master the information, they can what do you call that, like do anything. They can get benefit from the information. They can process the information and data. And then we have new capital, which is creativity and cross-disciplinary talent. So the student must prepare themselves. They need to be creative and they need to be able to think multidisciplinary. And also they need to have a new skill like understand how to use the artificial intelligence, how to operate or to process data using data analytics, and how to use 3D printings and many others. And also now we have new terms, which is the new company. Maybe we already knew about mass production, but we now have a new term, mass customizations. And the next one is the individual empowerments. So most people have access to digital network to gain knowledge, communicate globally and do business. I think our generation now is very demanded with the internet. So we can sometimes, for example, for me, I can leave my mobile phones with me only for 1 hour maybe, I think, because there are so many people connected with me, then yeah, there are so many, what do you call that, like tasks that I have to do with my mobile phones. Okay. So from this image, the impact of digital transformation, we need to, we can conclude that we need to prepare our students to be having 21st century skill. And what are the 21st century skills? These are skills required to success in the 21st century and goes beyond occupation-specific skills. There are three skills: learning skill, literary skills, and life skills. Learning skill, we sometimes call the 4 Cs. Teach students about the mental process required to adapt and improve upon a modern work environments. So critical thinking, how the student finding the solution to problems, and then creativity thinking. Creativity is equally important as means of adaptations. This skill empowers students to see concepts in different light, which leads to innovations. And then collaborations. Collaboration means getting students to work together, achieve compromises, and get the best possible result from solving problems. And then communications. Communication means talking to others. Communication is, I think this is a very important skill that need to be prepared for the student in this era. I mean, for our student generations. Communication is requirement for any company to maintain profitability. It is crucial for students to learn how to effectively convey their ideas among different personality types. And the second one is literary skills, which include information literacy, media literacy, technology literacy. What are they? So literacy skills focuses on how a student can discern facts and then publishing outlet and the technology behind them. There is a strong focus on determining trustworthy sources and factual information to separate it from misinformations that floods the internet. I think you already know that there are so many information right now, and we sometimes cannot distinguish whether the information is hoax or not. So I think students need to have this skill, literary skills. And then life skills. I think this is life skill. Take a look the what do you call that? Like intangible element. I'm sorry, intangible elements of a student everyday life. This intangible focus on both personal and professional qualities. So the student must be flexible. I mean, this is flexibility. Flexibility is the expression of someone's ability to adapt to changing circumstances. I think this is one of the most challenging qualities to learn for students, because it's based on two, what do you call that, like uncomfortable ideas. The first one may be your way isn't always the best way, right? And then the second one is you have to know and admit when you are wrong. I think flexibility requires them to, what do you call that, so humility and accept they always have a lot to learn, even when they are experienced. And then leaderships. I think leadership is motivating a team to accomplish a goal. Yeah, some 1% for setting goals, working a team through the step required, and achieving those goals collaboratively. Yeah. And then true success also required initiative. Yeah, initiative. Requiring students to be self-started. So how they start the project, and then how they plan the strategy by themselves. Along with the initiative, 21st Century Skill requires students to learn about productivity. That's a student ability to complete work in an appropriate amount of times. And then social skill, I think this is a crucial aspects. Social skills are crucial to ongoing success of professional. You know that business is frequently done through the connections one person's make with other around them. So proper social skill are excellent tool for forging long-lasting relationships. And then altogether, these 21st century skills will contribute to a student's future career. And STEM education is considered can help teach skills necessary for the 21st century success. So what is STEM? Yeah, actually, this definition is already explained by Professor Gillian, but I will give another perspective. I adopted from Fergus, Snyder, and Common. So STEM is an interdisciplinary approach to learning that removes traditional barriers, separating the four disciplines of science, technology, and engineering, and mathematics, and integrate them into real-world, rigorous, and relevant learning experience for students. And why does STEM matter? As mentioned by Professor Gillian, why STEM is important. Professor Gillian said that address STEM workforce need, and then improve STEM literacy, and also address current challenge of the 21st century. I can add here that the current pandemic has only reinforced the importance of technology. This importance, this current situation have only made technology skills more important. With more people turning to Zoom and then Google Meet and other tools to connect with family members and coworkers, it's even more important to equip students to use and develop technology. Even after the pandemic is over, many people and workplaces will retain some of their new technology habits. So building a strong STEM foundation now will set students up for a success in this year and beyond. So what is robotic? Why I use robotics? So robotic is the specialized type of engineering that deal with the design, constructions, operations, and application of robot. A robot is, any man-made machines that can perform work or other actions normally performed by humans. I can give you examples a robot that now being used by humans, or maybe complement or supplement for human tasks. Okay. Why this is robots perform human tasks. So robots have become more popular currently because they are able to perform very repetitive tasks, or maybe very dangerous tasks in the place of human. For example, in the first video, there is a security robot equipped with sensor and also a video camera, help prevent crime before it happens using instant alert. So this is one of beneficial things with robot. And the second one, you can see here that it is the sweeper robot designed by Dutch. This robot is able to identify like paper based on ripeness. So you can see here that the robot is very smart, and he can identify, he can recognize which paper is already ripe, and the robot will cut off the papers. And the third one, you can see here, this is a Flippy robot. Flippy robot developed by Miso Robotics. It is robotic kitchen assistance. The robot can cook perfect burger, even cleaning the kitchens after using it. So this kind of remarkable innovations. So why robotics? Why robotics? A study on problem solving by Barak and Zadoks identified that students involved in robotic activities often utilize heuristic in the classrooms. I mean, the process in which the problem solver, which is the student as the problem solvers, can identify solution methods based on their own life experiences, of course. The heuristic used by students can then be capitalized on to strengthen and expand student real-world problem-solving capabilities. And then the second one, why robotics? The robot can be used as a learning tool. It can be means of making math or science problem, and the students are asked to solve the problem, or maybe using the robot as a learning tool to find the solutions to the real problem that given. So in this case, the robot is programmed in such a way that it can do the job we wanted. And the last one is robotic can be integrated in classrooms in engaging way to motivate the student in their process of learning. So this is to emphasize how to make the learning is fun and engaging. Robotic in STEM educations. So educational robotic or robotics in education in the phrase is the phrase widely used to describe the use of robotic as a learning tool in the classrooms. So robot technology has been more accessible for teachers and students of any age currently. So yeah, this is the reason why I'm trying to bring the robot into the classroom, but because of the pandemics, yeah, this is the most challenging things. What do you call it? Bringing the robot into the classrooms. Yeah, that's why maybe in my next presentation I will explain the changing process of this research. So if you can see here, there are so many robots that can be used in STEM educations. Large offering of robotic material prompted their rapid dissemination across all primary school level, yeah, mainly in robotic extracurricular activities. Several robot systems for education, like here, we have Lego Mindstorms, Kibo by KinderLab Robotics, and then Olo and Bioloid made by a Korean-based robotic company. Actually, Olo is for younger students. This is for elementary school, and Bioloid can be used by upper elementary or maybe middle school to high school students. However, the cost of the robotics kits are quite expensive. So implementation. So this is what you call that, like, it has been one of the factors that prevented the implementation of robotic in the classrooms. So we purpose to use the low-cost educational robotics. So due to their high costs, and also they need to install specific software and set up the configurations of the programmings. So this can be problematic for teachers without proper training. So we need to develop low-cost educational robotic kits that a school maybe can buy or procure if they want to use robotic as a part of learning process. In our study, we redevelop a smart robot. So the robot you can see on the screen is, we call it smart robot, which is from scrollers or screwed modular assemblable robotic systems. This the design of the low-cost educational robotics driven by four basic requirements. The first one is low cost. So the component used in the our study when we making the robot should be or must be affordable to most school. So this requirement impacted on restricting somehow the level of functionality and performance implemented by the kids. That would be problematic as well, actually. So the second requirement is appeal. It must be appealing to the teachers and students to stimulate their enthusiasm in working with the robotics kit. So this requirement limits to some extent the use of low-cost component of the cell, such as the Arduino platforms. The third one is simplicity. The design of the robotic kits concept is simply easy to be assembled, operated, and also maintained. And then the last one is open source. So an open source is, I think this is the best way for spreading this innovative idea. And in this regard, the robotic kit must be accessible to all interested parties, including teachers, students, and IT support staff. So in our study, we use mBlock 3 for coding. mBlock is a block-based programming application that enables the MacBlock controller board to interact with Arduino-based software because we use Arduino platforms. This allows user to create interactive hardware application, and the mBlock application can be accessed freely from the internet. The code were defined into command block. As you can see here, there are some command block here. And then we uploaded the program to the robot, and testings was also performed afterward, after we finish making the blocks. And then we make sure that the robot can run smoothly and can run well based on our goals. Next is robotic teacher training. So in our study, we have a robotic teacher training for promoting STEM educations. So robotic teacher training is one of our research activities. And due to the pandemic, our research activity has changed. Initially, our activities will carry out in schools physically with a focus on the use of educational robotics for student learning. We then change with the provision of teachers to implement the low-cost educational robot platform to promote STEM learning. So the subject of the research just teachers. Initially, we want to observe not only teachers but also the students, how they perceive when robotics is integrated into their learning activities. So this is one of our challenge in bringing a robot into the classroom during this pandemic. We also have a limited number of robotics, so it is not possible to equip one student, one robot. Yeah. There were 4 teachers get involved in our study, and in our study we adopted the system of module for developing sequences of structurally related STEM learning activities from Chalmers and Nation comprises 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 activities. The first activity is preliminary activities. In these activities, teacher familiarize with the context of robotics construction tasks. So familiarizing teachers with the context of tasks can be achieved by providing teachers with background information via short article or web page and video clips. So in this case, we give like introductions about the robot and then about the STEM and how to use robot, how we can integrate the robot into the STEM educations. And then the second one is robot design activity. Robot design activity teach in here teachers are engaged in the process of designing and constructing robot. And then we have big idea explorations activity. In our study, this activity include identifying topics to be taught using robot. So because not all the topic may be suitable being taught using robot, so the teacher must identify the topic first. Teachers were given opportunity to share their ideas to others and also to our research groups. We then have discussion by giving feedback to the teacher. We also get a recommendation from the teacher to redesign the robot. So teacher is get involved in redesigning the robots, but we are as researcher is the main parties that like develop the robots, but the idea is from the teachers. And then the primary goal, robot design, and then we have a robot adaptation activity. So the primary goal of the robot adaptation activity is to have a teacher deal with robotic problems. So this step is refining or redesigning the robot, so the robot can be used or according with their goal, based on big idea exploration. And then the last one is synthesizing discussion. Synthesizing discussion are conducted during the concluding phase of a sequence of learning activities. So this discussion provide closure and have a teacher to like beyond thinking with the foreground big ideas. So like maybe in Bahasa Indonesia we can see brainstorming and conclude the brainstorming together. So this is our activity. This is actually the preliminary activities. So this is teacher familiarized with the context of robotic construction tasks, and then we ask the teacher, after they familiarize with the component of the robot, we ask them to assemble the robot. And then this is also the robot design activity. You can see here that teacher assembled the robotic kits. And then we also conducted online training for the teacher to give them knowledge about the programmings, which is a robotic code programmings. So because not all of these teachers are familiar with the programmings, but we choose en bloc programmings. The teacher are easily to follow the instructions because the programming is look like a puzzle. So you just need drag and drop the block. Also, this is the teacher's idea of STEM learning with educational robotics. So after they got trainings, how to design the robot and then how to program the robot, we asked them to, we encourage them to find the idea. And then this is the summary of their ideas. We have 4 teachers from junior high school level and senior high school level. And then we work with mathematics education teachers and also the natural science teachers. And you can see here, each teacher, propose different ideas. For example, here teacher 1, he chose he chose a perimeter and area of triangle. So the robot is programmed to create a triangle. So the robot is used to create a mathematic problem. So when the robot is operated, the robot will create a triangle, and then the teacher will ask the students to find the perimeter and also the area of a triangle. And the second one from the natural sciences, the teacher choose constant velocity and constant acceleration. So there is an example for this. I will show you. This is a teacher's idea. The teacher give the presentations. Okay. Let me share.
Excuse me.
Saya teknologi engineering and matematik. Ini kerjasama dengan partner riset jurusan ilmu komputer UNNES.
So this is one of our.
Nah, di sini simulasi tracking robot ultrasonik. Dalam kegiatan ini nanti bisa menjelaskan tentang GLB dipercepat dan GLB diperlambat pada tracking gambar tersebut. Rencana di posisi A ke posisi B itu nanti robot bergerak secara GLB. Mohon maaf dalam simulasi ini karena untuk animasinya tidak bisa dalam GLB, ini tetap dalam gerak A ke B, B ke C, C ke D. Ini nanti kelihatannya masih seperti GLB dipercepat. Namun ada kenyataannya nanti kita ubah saat di posisi A ke B, robot bergerak dengan putaran RPM yang sama tetap sehingga geraknya GLB. Itu mensimulasikan bahwa anak nanti melihat bagaimana gerak GLB itu dengan ciri-ciri kecepatan tetap. Setelah sampai titik B, nanti si robot ini sensor ultrasonik mendeteksi ada jarak dengan jarak tertentu yang kita atur. Setelah tracking dari B ke C, A ke B ini jaraknya semua terukur. Yang sebelumnya diukur itu akan bisa digunakan nanti untuk perumusan fisik secara matematisnya. Nah, di sini saat ada mendeteksi jarak, posisi di B, si robot ini akan dalam programnya RPM-nya kita percepat sehingga melakukan gerak dipercepat. Nah, simulasinya seperti ini. Dan saat sampai posisi C, ini kan akan menanjak. Jelas gerakan menanjak itu nanti gerakan diperlambat. Nah, anak akan terdeteksi simulasinya seperti ini. Dan terakhir di posisi D, ini robotnya berhenti. Modelnya seperti itu dalam pembelajaran yang kami rencanakan.
Okay. So in this video, the teacher tried to explain how the links, the science, technology, mathematics, and engineering. Actually, the teacher give like a lesson plan, but I didn't put the lesson plan here. So the teacher is trying to link the science, technology, mathematics, and engineering. So for example here, the science here, the teacher talking about the concepts of constant velocity and constant accelerations, and then the technology here, the teacher used robotic ultrasonic robot, and then mathematics, the use of the formula of the constant velocity, and the engineering, the way the students is, what do you call that, like program and assemble the robot. So since there are teachers want to use the robot for mathematics games, for example here, teacher 3 and teacher 4 from senior high school, they choose vectors and translation. They try to use the robot for gaming. So we need to redesign the robot. So the examples of redesign of smart robot from manual into auto drive and remote control. So the student will be able to use remote control.
1 minute left.
Okay, So the student will be, what do you call that? Like have a control to remote the robot, yeah, to move from one point to another points. So they can understand how a translation is, how the concept of the, I mean, to understand the concept of the translation or maybe the factors. So this is our smart robot. I think we jump to the conclusions. So in our study, several robots have been produced that can be used for STEM learnings, but my apologies that I just give you only one kind of a robot. The robot was developed according to the needs of teaching and learning activities, and then customizable robot, I mean, teacher prefer to choose a customizable robot. Sorry, this is a wrong sentence. And also the Chalmers and Nelson system of model help in developing sequences of STEM learning activities for teachers to understand how educational robotics is being used to promote STEM learning activities. I think that's all my presentation for today. Thank you. Back to you, moderator.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zainal Abidin, PhD, for really interesting and inspiring talk. Now we come to the question and answer session. In front of me, we have a lot of questions. So I will, I will read the first question. Yeah, this question is from Rahmat Hanafi Sulistiawan from UNNES. She asked to, this question is addressed to Dr. Siti. How to develop IoT or ICT-based STEM learning innovation in the modern era 5.0, and what kind of learning model is most suitable to support STEM in learning in the 5.0 era that has been implemented in the school in developed country? Thank you. So please, Dr. Siti, please respond this question.
Thank you very much. The question is great. Yeah, it's actually a very difficult question. The way we approach this one was through multidisciplinary approach. So what we did in CERC in developing a very, very good activity, STEM or ICT-based activities, we engaged many different experts in psychology, expert in content such as mathematics, expert in pedagogy, expert in technology. So to develop a very good STEM-based activities, we approach it through multidisciplinary area. Okay, that's number one. The second possibility, if we can develop from the start, I think it is too difficult for the teachers to develop by their own. I mean, it can be, but it can take lots of time. Okay, so what you can use is actually to find some available good activities for you to read, to adapt, or to apply. Yeah, to adjust with your own activities. with your own learning objectives. And for me, I guess we are getting better in designing things. Okay, we learn from our own experiences. What you can do also. My third answer, I think, don't be too ambitious in designing. Maybe you can decide from a simple one, and then try to really look at and learn from the development. Hopefully that answered the question. But also, what is very positive right now, there are so many good resources that are available. And I think thanks Pak Zainal for mentioning, because my PhD is really about how to help, how to support teachers to utilize ICT to enrich student learning mathematics. So I have identified many good resources, and maybe I can show you later in relation to another question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question, Dr. Siti. And now the second question is addressed to Zainal Abidin, PhD. The question is from Pak Kasmui. The question is as follows: what is the easiest way to use robots in science learning for teachers who do not have a background in computer science or electronic engineering? Apart from using Arduino, is there another way that this is easier? Zainal Abidin, PhD, please your response.
Okay, thank you so much. That was very interesting questions. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Pak Kasmui. Hello. Okay. Sorry, there is a guest coming in my room. Okay, so what is the easiest way to use robot in science learning for teachers who do not have background in computer science? Yeah, so in my study, in my research, all the teachers has different IT skill. Actually, they don't have knowledge about robotics, and then I think from my study, it can be I can see that they successfully they're able to make a robot, and then they're able to identify what topic that can be delivered using the robot. So I think having what do we call that, like 1 day workshop training, that's enough. Yeah, 1 day workshop training. So introduction to the robot, then assembling the robot, and then programming. So the programming here is not difficult things. So I think Pak Kasmui already knew how to use the scripts, and the programming is also similar. MBlock is kind of similar with how Scratch is work. So you just drag and drop. The most important thing is the logical thinkings, because maybe in programming there is what do you call that, looping, repetitions, and some things event that must be put it on the program. So yeah, the most important thing, if the teacher or user have good logical thinking, I think it is easy to follow the instructions. I mean, the basic instruction how to make robotic code programming. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Zainal Abidin, PhD. So now we move to a question. Third question is addressed to Dr. Siti. The question is from Bu Isti Hidayah, and the question is teamwork value is very important in STEM. So how to overcome during this pandemic? Yeah, during this pandemic situation. Okay, please your response, Dr. Dr. Siti?
Very, very interesting question, and I think we have to address that one. It is not always easy, but we really have to target to facilitate them to work collaboratively. So one common method that I used in my teaching is actually to design some activities where they need to work together. I think it depends on the technology you are using. For example, I use Blackboard, or in Zoom also, we often apply a break group. So we really clarify what the task that the group need to accomplish, and we send them to the room, to the group to work together. But also what I did, I also anticipate that they need to be productive during their group work. Okay, so I often provide them with a shared document where they need to prove that they really learn. I always said to my students, I have a learning objectives. I need to help you to learn. But how do I know that my student learned something? And how do I know that my student work together? So I have to design some activities. I have to imagine what would happen if I do A or B or C. And I always ask for them to provide some evidence. Let me give you an example. Let me share my screen. So that would be easier. For example, in my mathematics teaching, have I shared my screen?
Yes.
Can you see isometric drawing?
Yes.
Yeah, good. This is just an example where I provide them with some activities, all right? Let's say, sometimes I said to my student, you can turn on your video, and you can work, you can off screen, you don't have to use the screen, but you need to go back to your group to discuss about it. And this is an example when they need to do some inquiry to look at, to answer this question, yeah? It is a very interesting problem where they need to explore, misalnya saja kita meminta mereka untuk mengecek ukuran-ukuran ini. Apakah ukuran kalau dia rentangkan tangannya, apakah panjang dari hasil merentangkan tangan itu sama panjangkah dengan tingginya? Oke. Apakah, nah ini adalah contoh dari, ini masa pandemik ya, ini contoh di mana mereka tidak punya meteran sehingga menggunakan kursi untuk melihat apakah panjangnya setelah direntangkan tangannya itu sama panjangnya dari ujung kaki ke ujung kepala mereka. Kemudian ini juga dalam masa pandemik di mana dia bersama seorang temannya di rumah, melihat ya, melakukan suatu kegiatan yang seperti ini. Nah, of course this kind of design menstimulasi mereka, merangsang mereka untuk bekerja secara bersama. Hal yang lain misalnya yang saya lakukan itu banyak memberikan aktivitas-aktivitas online. Misalnya saja pada website ini, jika saya boleh tunjukkan, maybe let me just take this one. Dari aktivitas yang misalnya mengembangkan sesuatu, mereka bekerja sama, tapi mereka juga mereka bekerja secara berpasangan, tapi jelas apa yang akan mereka kerjakan begitu. Misalnya membuat bangun-bangun seperti ini, Ini kaitan dengan spatial reasoning juga, di mana kalau bangun itu dilihat dari atas kelihatan seperti ini dari depan, front or right, and they need to manipulate. Oh, di mana saya harus meletakkannya? Oh, kalau dilihat dari depan, bagaimana? Nah, kegiatan-kegiatan seperti ini itu mereka penasaran ya. Jadi value atau nilai-nilai yang kita ingin bangun, metode yang kita ingin terapkan, bagaimana supaya mereka itu memang berkeinginan ya, karena online learning is very difficult actually. It is challenging. It is more challenging in planning, but it can work. And even some of my students, for example, said in their feedback, actually with this online, it is more productive. Ya, jadi mereka kadang-kadang dari beberapa, tergantung juga mahasiswanya, mereka melihat justru karena online, karena dia benar-benar kita dosennya harus bekerja keras untuk mendesain dan kita perlu memastikan bahwa mereka mendapatkannya, sehingga itu bisa terjadi. Kalau mereka mengatakan, oh ya saya lebih suka ini, iyalah, tapi waktu untuk merancangnya memang diperlukan waktu yang banyak. Hopefully it answer the question. Ya. Yeah?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Siti, for very comprehensive explanation. Here there is another question for you. This question is from Bu Langlang Handayani, and the question is, what needs to be prepared by a teacher to teach STEM-based material? If you don't mind, would you please share a particular lesson plan related to my above question?
Okay.
Please, Dr. Siti, give your response.
Yeah, I think I need time to really find my lesson plan, but as a lecturer, I really make a lesson plan. Okay, I really make a lesson plan using Google Doc, because I can put all the links that my students need to do. Even sometimes I post my lesson plan to them. This is my lesson plan, so you know what I am intending to do. But whatever you do, I think what has to be clear, what do we really want the student to learn? What skill do we want them to achieve? And then think about the activities that, is it really true that the activities that we are offering to the student will help them to achieve the task? So if you still can see my screen, let me share again my screen. Okay, I guess this one, desktop 2. Share. This is just my students here. For these particular activities, I really want them to develop spatial reasoning, spatial reasoning using geometry. And I provide with some photo, because usually in the classroom, in UC, for pre-service teacher or master of students, I mean students who already got a bachelor degree but they want to become a teacher, we always have to do some hands-on activity. Oke, jadi kalau sebelum pandemik itu, kalau kita di kelas banyak menggunakan alat peraga, banyak bekerja, jadi kurang ceramah. Mereka punya sistem 1 jam kita kuliahkan begitu. Kalau kuliah benar-benar kita nyiapkan apa yang kita ingin mereka ketahui. Kemudian pada waktu di tutorial itu bagaimana mengaplikasikan teori-teori yang sudah kita sampaikan. Nah, masalahnya pada saat pandemi itu susah gitu. Sehingga apa yang saya lakukan, ada banyak contoh-contoh sebenarnya yang saya miliki. Saya kadang-kadang seperti ini. Jadi memberikan mereka, saya terpaksa memotret sehingga lebih konkret, kemudian meminta mereka untuk melakukan hal-hal yang seperti saya sajikan tadi. Banyak menggunakan, pada aktivitas saya banyak menggunakan virtual manipulatives. Jadi Pak Zainal kalau bidangnya di sini mungkin seperti itu juga ya. Mungkin virtual robot barangkali yang banyak digunakan. Ya.
Okay.
Seperti itu. Ada
Thank
yang
you
saya
for
mau
your
sampaikan.
response. The next question is for both the speaker. The question, there are two short questions. The first question is from again Bu Langlang Handayani. The question is, how long does it take for a prospective teacher to become a skilled STEM teacher? Maybe to Zainal Abidin, PhD, please give your response.
I think this is the it depends the teachers maybe. Yeah. I have no experience in I have no experience enough in working with teachers in STEM. Maybe I'll let Dr. Siti to give response to these questions.
This is a very interesting question too. How long does it take us to be proficient, to be skillful? It is one question that people already research, and even I don't know. I agree with Pak Zainal. It depends on the people. It depends on their capacity or their willingness to do it. But even myself, I try to model to my students that it is difficult to say that we are expert teacher. Okay, even for me, let's say I've been a teacher educator for more than 15 years. But in some occasion, I said my planning didn't work very well. In some occasion, my plan worked beautifully and I am happy. But what I did is really actually to tell the prospective teachers that being a teacher, we never be able to say we achieving the end or we are now good. Okay, we are very good now. So there is no definite answer for that. Because even for you prospective teachers, in some occasion maybe you can do it successfully, but in some other situation it can't work. And maybe the way I answer this question, I have 4 classes, for example, for 1 unit. Sometimes with the same plan, it worked very, very well for 2 classes, but it didn't work well for 2 classes. Okay, and then I said, oh, am I proficient now? I can't really say that. Okay, if you look at the success. So there is no definite answer. Thank you.
The next question is not mentioned to whom this question is addressed, so I suppose it's both of the speaker. The question is from Mercy Musani Goma. The question is, why are collaboration and communications is not classified as a social skill under life skills? So maybe any of the speaker would like to respond first.
Is that Pak Zainal?
Okay.
Can you
maybe
elaborate?
one more? I will repeat one more time. Why are collaboration and communication not classified as social skill under life skills? Yes, please.
I think that's for Pak Zainal, Pak Samuel.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, Pak Zainal.
Yes.
Please give your response.
Yeah. So I mentioned in my presentations about the 21st century skill. So the question is about the collaboration and communication is now about what?
Social skills. Social skills under life skills.
or other life skills. So maybe because the collaboration and communication is part of the learning process. So for example, in collaboration here, the way the students can work together with the teams, maybe in the small groups to what do you call that, like solve, to find the solution of the problem given by the teachers, some things. And then the communication is the way the students is learn to express their idea, express their insight to the other students. So this is why the collaboration and communications tend to be included in the learning skill instead of the literary skill or life skills. Maybe in my opinions. Maybe Dr. Siti Patuhuddin have another perspective about this ones, or maybe any feedback from the question.
Yes, please.
I think for my own perspective, communication can be, it depends on how people categorize, but communication really determine or really impacted our social skill or influence our social skills. Yeah. But categories for different people might different for certain for particular consideration. So it's something that you can decide, I guess. There's another question, Pak Samuel. I think people talk about STEM in early learners. Is that right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, there are the questions.
Yeah. Would you like me to answer that?
Sure. Please go ahead.
Okay. Because STEM, also from my Padlet, it says that STEM is for high school. Okay, there's a tendency to think about we can teach STEM from for high school. But what we actually did at UC, we did STEM for early learners. So maybe what I can do is, instead of explaining, but what I can do is play like a 3-minute video to show how this STEM is applied in early learners. Is that okay? Okay.
So,
yeah.
So yeah,
This
almost running out of time, but maybe we still have time for the last question. The question is again from Bu Langlang Handayani. The question is as follow: assessment for value aspect of STEM learning. What type of assessment can we use, and when and how can we apply the assessment during the lesson? It's not mentioned for who. These questions.
Okay.
Maybe any of the speaker would like to answer first.
Assessment, what we did at UC, or particularly for the Faculty of Education, we have 3 types of assessment. We think assessment as learning. We also think assessment for learning and assessment of learning. Yeah. And assessment of learning, we assess what they have achieved, what they have understood, and it is usually assessed through tests. But assessment that we often use, assessment as learning, is assessing process, is an authentic assessment. So what we did, for example, in my course, we did authentic assessment called portfolio. So to understand or to encourage students to really learn about lesson design, what they did, they need to plan their lesson, they need to conduct their lesson, they went to the school, they practice their lesson and they come back and reflect and revise. But then how do I assess it? So how do we assess it is using portfolio, okay, digital portfolio. And we need to be really clear about the criteria. So we develop rubric. And this is not new for Indonesia as well. We know about portfolio, we know about authentic assessment, but I think when I was in Indonesia, I learned many about the theory, and an interesting part for me at University of Canberra, I really learned from the application of all those theory because we have to do it. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. So we are in the end of the session. So I would like for all speaker to give a closing statement or a conclusion, which is just short one. Start from Professor Gillian Roeri. Would you please to give like a closing statement for us and for our audience, please?
Sorry, Professor. Yes, you're still mute. Just unmute your microphone.
Oh, I think I'm unmuted now. Is my sound okay?
Yes, good.
Okay, all right. So I think what I'd like to conclude is that integrated STEM definitely cuts across all ages. With the conversation we just had around early childhood, younger students all the way through high school. We have to think about the model a little bit differently in terms of the kinds of problems that that students are engaging in. But we want students engaging in these critical thinking and collaborative spaces through all of the age groups. So it's exciting to think across all three of these presentations, the different ways in which we can accomplish that. There's really no one way to do STEM. There are many productive ways based off of what we've heard today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And now we turn to Dr. Siti. Would you please to give a short closing statement, please? Please unmute, Bu Siti. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've learned a lot from the two other presentations. Enhance my understanding the importance of STEM. For everyone, my final message here, if you are going to develop if you are going to design your lesson I hope the STEM practices that I presented today can be a helpful tool in thinking about what I am going to do for my subject, and also hopefully it can become as a reflection tool. For example, did I actually design and enact my lesson to stimulate their curiosity? Did I really help them to develop a questioning skill or make a productive questioning and so on? I hope they are very useful. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Dr. Zainal Abidin, please give your closing statement.
Okay. First of all, thank you for these fruitful discussions. I think from this event, I myself learned a lot from Professor Gillian and also Dr. Siti. We can explore more how to set up the system STEM educations. More specific with my topics, you may use robotics as a learning tool for your future STEM project. However, what need to do is consider the challenge that may be faced by students or teachers during the pandemics. Okay, I think that's enough for me.
Okay, thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of the webinar session. We would like to say thanks again for all the presenters for their informative and interesting talk and to audience for your participation. Hopefully the presentation will be beneficial for everybody. Thank you for your attention. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel, and for all plenary speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our plenary session today. Let's give reaction of applause to appreciate our speakers today. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, before we close this session, we want to thank to Rector, Vice Rector of the Academic Affairs, Dean, and Head of the Department in Universitas Negeri Semarang, speakers for remarkable presentation, organizing committee, and especially all participants for the enthusiasm in contributing to our webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our plenary session. It's been our pleasure to host this event, and I wish you all a pleasant day. I apologize if I might deliver inappropriate speech, and we will see you soon in other program. Thank you for your participation, and let's give applause for all of us. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning.
Thank you everyone for joining this international webinar.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you Bu Siti, thank you Pak Zainal.
Pak Zainal.
Yeah, terima kasih, thank you so much.
Semoga virusnya cepat hilang dan saya bisa pulang.
Kami tunggu.
Kami tunggu di Semarang, udah Pak Siti.
Iya, terima kasih banyak ini Pak Dekan. Terima kasih Pak Zainal. Mudah-mudahan kapan-kapan bisa ke sini juga.
Thank you Cedric.
Terima kasih semua.
Terima kasih Bu Siti.
Assalamualaikum.
Terima kasih.
Pak Dekan, Pak BD1.
Terima
kasih Pak Zainal.
Para ketua. Ada Pak Tommy juga ya?
Pak Tommy muncul. Jamnya mana Pak Tommy?
Iya.
Saya terus
Mas Arif,
menyimak.
thank you. Mbak Budi, thank you.
Thank you Bu Yus.
Sarif,
Pak Tommy.
Keren, amazing.
Amazing.
Daftar hadiahnya nggak ada nggih?
Arif Fidiat Moko.
Ada Bu.
Daftar
Ada
hadiah.
di chat Bu Wiwi.
Oh nggih, ini sedang saya cari kok nggak ketemu.
Ya, tolong di-share lagi itu. Bitly itu loh Bu.
Nggih, sebentar. Mohon di
Ya,
ini feedback kok. Ini feedback bukan
ya
presentasi.
jadi satu Bu, jadi
Oh,
satu.
jadi satu nggih nggih nggih.
Feedback
Nggih,
and
matur nuwun.
Oke.
Terima kasih Pak Zainal, Bu Budi.
Terima kasih. Bu selamat, matur nuwun.
Terima kasih atas semuanya.
Matur
nuwun Pak Dekan, Pak Bikin.
Pak Wisti, matur nuwun. Bu Linda. Ya,
Luar biasa.
matur nuwun.
Mohon izin. Jempol. Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Materinya kok tidak di-share?
Ini sama email Bu,
dikirim via
satu
email.
sama sertifikat dan materi.
Materi dikirim barengan
Mohon kami.
Bagus, Pak.
Visi kami adalah menjadi Fakultas Matematika dan Ilmu Pengetahuan Alam berwawasan konservasi dan bereputasi internasional.
Memiliki 6 jurusan dengan 14 program studi, FMIPA Universitas Negeri Semarang menjadi bagian rumah ilmu pengembang peradaban unggul bagi lebih dari 5.500 mahasiswa. Untuk menghasilkan lulusan unggul, FMIPA didukung tenaga pengajar yang kompeten dan berintegritas. Sejumlah kerjasama dengan perguruan tinggi di luar negeri dijalin untuk penguatan kelembagaan yang bereputasi internasional. Jurusan Matematika. Jurusan ini memiliki 3 program studi terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan matematika, program studi matematika, dan program studi statistika terapan. Jurusan Fisika. Jurusan Fisika saat ini memiliki 2 program studi yang telah terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan fisika dan program studi fisika. Jurusan Kimia. Jurusan ini memiliki 2 program studi terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan kimia dan program studi kimia. Pada tahun 2019, jurusan kimia membuka program studi baru, yaitu program studi farmasi. Jurusan Biologi. Jurusan ini memiliki 2 program studi terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan biologi dan program studi biologi. Pada tahun 2019, program studi biologi telah berhasil mendapatkan sertifikasi internasional dari ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance. Jurusan IPA Terpadu. Jurusan ini memiliki 1 program studi terakreditasi A, yaitu program studi pendidikan IPA. Dan pada tahun 2019, jurusan IPA Terpadu telah membuka 1 program studi baru, yaitu program studi ilmu lingkungan. Jurusan Ilmu Komputer. Jurusan ini merupakan jurusan termuda di FMIPA yang saat ini menaungi 2 program studi, yaitu program studi informatika dan program studi sistem informasi. Sebagai bagian dari pengembang peradaban dan ilmu pengetahuan, FMIPA telah menghasilkan mahasiswa dan lulusan yang memiliki kompetensi unggul.
FMIPA adalah kampus yang inovatif, di mana di FMIPA sendiri terdapat fasilitas yang memadai dan juga mahasiswanya di sana bisa berkolaborasi dan bekerjasama untuk saling berkarya dan berprestasi. Banyak sekali kesempatan yang saya dapat selama kuliah di FMIPA, yaitu ada prestasi seperti prestasi di bidang akademik, non-akademik, kemudian delegasi, kemudian ada prestasi organisasi, baik itu tingkat nasional maupun internasional. Harapan saya FMIPA semakin inovatif dan berprestasi sehingga mampu mendukung UNNES mendunia untuk Indonesia.
Nama saya Muhammad Hamrowi, saya alumni FMIPA Universitas Negeri Semarang. Saat ini saya sebagai Board of Director dari Krokodik. Segala pencapaian yang kami dapatkan hari ini tidak terlepas dari peran serta bimbingan dari dosen-dosen kami di FMIPA Universitas Negeri Semarang. Kami bisa terus survive, adaptif, menghadapi permasalahan-permasalahan dalam kehidupan kami dan alhamdulillah bisa mengantarkan kami sampai di titik ini.
Untuk menghadapi tantangan global, FMIPA melaksanakan sejumlah program internasional bagi sivitas akademika, di antaranya konferensi internasional, student exchange, PPL antarbangsa, KKN antarbangsa, PKL internasional, dan berbagai program pengembangan kompetensi mahasiswa di luar negeri. FMIPA mengantarkan generasi terbaik bangsa menjadi agen perubahan demi kepentingan bangsa, negara, dan masyarakat dunia.
No.